Poitras and Jim Toth on 680 CJOB.
Against the context, Kevin, of being a first-place team when you started this season and being a 32nd-place team at the halfway mark, would it be too extreme or would it be accurate to call what we've seen so far an unmitigated disaster?
Well, again, certainly, you go into the season, you have obviously very high expectations. I think every team that goes in, feels they have that opportunity to, spread their wings and try to compete, for a Stanley Cup. We've said it all along. First and foremost, your first job is to, find a way to get into the playoffs, and that comes with the ability to go through a season and earn your way to that. To this point, obviously, it's been very disappointing. We have not, I think to a man, top to bottom, and it starts with me, I think everyone would feel like there's a level of responsibility here that, we need to find a way to be better. So, again, we're at the halfway point, and your record is your record, and all you can do is control what's in front of you. And, again, adversity is part of this game. It's part of life. The art in it is how you handle it. And I think that's the thing. You can choose, any different direction. But, when I woke up this morning, for me, the choice is put your head down and, find a way to keep pushing this team to get better. And I think, everybody has to adopt that mentality. So, again, very disappointed. Didn't necessarily see it coming, but if you look at all the different things, it's a tough league to win in. And certainly the situation that we're in with, be it 1-goal games, be it, giving, not maybe playing to the defensive structure that has become our signature for the last couple of years, all of a sudden you find yourself in this predicament.
Cam Poitras, Jim Toth here. That was General Manager Kevin Cheveldayoff in a mid-season press conference. This is scheduled. This was scheduled. This isn't something that happened based on where the Winnipeg Jets are sitting. This happens every single year. So I just wanted to discuss that.
Happens every season. Mid-season,
yeah. That's why it's called a mid-season press conference. This hour is brought to you by Wash Method Car Wash, 690 St. Anne's Road, and at washmethod.com, which is coming at you live from the Boston Pizza Studio. Boston Pizza, saucy savings on pasta every day in January from only $11.99. We got lots of audio that we need to go through. We're going to go through all the comments, the highlights from Kevin Cheveldayoff's press conference that happened at 10:30 our time. But I want to make sure that we get just some initial thoughts from some texters on, because I just want to address the text because they're all essentially the same thing. The ones that we've gotten right out of the bat here. We'll give our thoughts and then we'll go right into the audio here. So Kevin texts the show and says, just listening. I hope it's not Kevin Cheveldayoff, but it's another Kevin. Kevin says, just listening.
I hope it is.
That would be funny. Kevin says, just listening to Chevy's presser, no answers, just stay the course. It's a work in progress. No one on the Moose is kicking the door down. Newly signed veterans feel bad about challenging year, and as a fan, I'm insulted. No accountability, nor plan. What was your take? This texter says, guys, Chevy's word salad today scared me. Corey says, sounded like Chevy isn't taking any accountability. Change is needed. This texter says, hi, boy, no accountability on this team. Chevy should be fired ASAP. Arneal at the end of the year. This texter says, Chevy has always used twice as many words as regular people when he talks. It's exhausting to listen to. Why doesn't he just say, I'm not going to give you that information, and then take the next question? Well, this was my take from today's press conference, and again, we'll hear more audio from it as the show goes on. He had nothing to say because there is nothing to say. There are no answers, and based on where things are right now, the prices of making acquisitions, the opportunities of said acquisitions, there's nothing right now at this moment to do. And I'll say this, in Chevy's defense, and I haven't seen any text messages about this, but we're probably going to see some. I see a guy who cares a lot, and I don't think that can be denied at all. He wants to win. He wants this team. He wants his team to turn this season around. But man, my takeaway is that it's going to take a heck of a lot for them to move guys down right now. They're going to need assets back if the season does not take a complete 180 overnight here. But they're looking at things. They're trying to figure things out, but they got lots of questions, but the answers are very muddled and very unclear.
I've never seen this before, Cam. I've never seen a team, a roster regress this bad that is good. And look, I had a lot of pushback after the Senators game on Saturday from a few people about why I think this is still a good team. This team sucks. I said this about 2 weeks ago, and I'll say it again. It doesn't suck. That's why it's so frustrating and angry and everything else. You have 4 Olympians on it. You have a top line. You have an all-star world goalie. I'm not going to go through the pieces and all that, but your top 4 defensemen are very good. This team can't defend. What I took from that is, so look, I didn't know. I was on the start today. They said, "What do you think Cheveldayoff's going to say?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And they said, "You think Chevy's going to say I don't know?" And I laughed, and I'm like, "No, I don't know what he's going to say, and I don't know if he knows what he's going to say, because it's kind of inexplicable how this team has lost itself in 40 games." So what I take from it is I didn't think he shrieked responsibility at all.
No, I didn't read that at all.
I think
whatsoever.
he's seen a lot more hockey than I have. He's been involved in a lot more hockey than a lot of people, and he doesn't know. They've abandoned their defensive system that as he said, served us so well the last couple of years. That's what I keep saying. If they were playing this system and losing all these 1-goal games and had lost 9 in a row, I'd be like, this is messed up.
Do you know what's so upsetting about that too, Jim, is that we see in games and times when they do go into the system and they start playing defensive, and then they start taking the game over, and then they fall right back.
That's the problem.
They can't put shifts together.
And Cam, that's the problem with the lineup. Is it a terrible roster that is the worst roster of the 32 teams? No, it's not. But the frustrating part is if they played 6 games in a row and they didn't play their system at all, it's real easy to go, these guys have lost it and they're done. Like the lineup.
Yeah.
But they do. They come out and they go down 2-0, and then they play 2 periods and they just can't get a goal. They defend well at points, then they don't. Like the stuff down the middle has gone away the last 8-9 games. But the first 30 games, everybody was coming down the middle on them, which I said at the time, I've never seen this before under their system. And I'm not trying to go look at this Washington game and look at the Seattle game and look at the last 2 periods in Utah and the Colorado game. Other than giving up some early goals, they looked like themselves and lost 3-2. That's what I think is dumbfounding to even Kevin Cheveldayoff. Is what is going on? What is this? What are we?
Yeah, there are no answers.
Now,
so
he's got to wear that. The other thing I liked about when he when he talked about the prospects, some are ready to kick open the door, some aren't. And then the whole idea of a trade or this or that. They're just, when I hear this roster sucks, if you want to say that to me, and my email is jim@cjob.com, and I've been getting a lot of emails lately. I'm trying to get back to everybody. I appreciate it. But if you say this roster sucks, let's go back to the summer. And if you're in his chair, were you looking to move Nino Niederreiter? Were you not looking to bring in Jonathan Toews? Were you sitting here going, I better find a trade partner for Cole Perfetti because he's coming off 50 points, and I think he's actually going to struggle to score 20 points this year. So that's why the roster doesn't suck. Morgan Barron's having a good year. Were you sitting there going, should I maybe look at not re-signing Adam Lowry because this injury, I don't know how is, and I'm being a little facetious here, but hindsight's 20/20 in 40 games. And that's what I think is the most difficult part. It's inexplicable. Everybody wants answers, and there aren't any for other than that I see for 40 games now, players highly underachieving and not playing the system that finds them success.
That's the thing. So anybody who thinks that the Jets are, that Cheveldayoff is not taking responsibility, that was not my takeaway from what I was listening to. And anybody thinking that they wanted him to say something, there's nothing to say. Nobody knows.
I mean, I understand it, though. It's all, fans listening to that would sit there and go, like, fans want to hear, this sucks. And I'm a little dumbfounded, but I'm going to work my tail off to fix it. And in the meantime, we are going to look at some prospects. Maybe in a week or two, we'll see how this homestand goes. Like, that's what fans want to hear. And to be honest with you, I think they deserve a little bit of that.
Yeah, I'm not against that either.
But he's not that guy. But I think they're doing that inside. I think they're like, what are we doing here?
Here was the most important piece to the entire press conference. You know what? I'll hold on to this. Well, I'll go to it after 12:30. I'll tell you. I'll play the clip that I think is the most important in the entire conversation. We'll play that after 12:30 because I just don't think we have enough time. But here was a question for Cheveldayoff. Why haven't you made any moves?
Well, again, I think that, you do look at different opportunities to see what's potentially available. Some of the things that, if you look around the league, there's been a handful of moves, from a trade perspective. Some of them involving currency that we don't have, that we've spent and move forward. I think, you have to have some sense of realism as well when, again, sitting in the situation that we're in here right now. If you look back and, kind of, retrospectively look at some of the things there, we're missing some of the years of the drafts, a guy like Lucius retires. Those are things that, those are the players that you're needing to make, contributions, right now. So we've traded a lot of draft picks. We've done a lot of that. And I think we're paying a little bit of a price, for that right now.
They don't have the assets. They don't have the assets to make a trade.
Well, the Quinn Hughes thing is a great one.
They do not have the assets. So what
you and I talked earlier, they have to start taking more risks like this. They have to start going, if it's a trade that brings Marco Rossi here in the offseason or Mason McTavish, those are the things you have to start doing. I'm on board with that, and he's got to be more aggressive
because the Wild were clearly willing to trade Marco Rossi.
Quinn Hughes, even if you get a year and a half out of Quinn Hughes, you've got to be more aggressive because of where you're at now. 5 years ago, maybe not. But where you are now, you have to do that. But when it comes to Quinn Hughes, they did not have the assets. And then we hear this, well, you spent this on Luke Shannon, you spent this on... Yeah, I don't remember anybody upset they went and acquired Tyler Toffoli. I don't remember anybody upset they went and acquired Sean Monahan. And last year, there were some people that said, well, I don't know about Shen, but they wanted another veteran defenseman who won a cup. Hindsight's 2020.
Well, yeah, it's unfortunate that second-round pick right now is 33rd overall. That's the problem now.
It's the age-old adage at the trade deadline. Are you happy your GM, at least tried?
Mm-hmm. So as far as I'm looking here, as reported earlier this year, Brad Lambert his agent was allowed to go and try and find a trade partner. Obviously, that has not come to fruition because Brad Lambert is still playing for the Manitoba Moose. That tells me he doesn't have much value. Nikita Chibrikov, I think maybe has a little bit more value than Brad Lambert, but he doesn't have enough games and he's been dealing with injuries and all that. The Jets have 3 pieces on this team right now that actually I believe has tangible value. And I mean, of course, they have a very, very good core group of players. The guys that have been carrying this team, Gabriel Velarde, Mark Scheifele, Connor Hellebuck, Josh Morrissey, all those guys, which you're not going to be trading. So guys that you could trade, Braden Yeager, Elias Solomonson, and your first overall pick that right now could potentially be somebody named Gavin McKenna at the end of this season.
I'm not trading this first overall pick.
Okay, so
I'll trade next year's.
Okay, that's right. So what are you going to do? So what do the Jets actually tangibly have to offer teams to make a move? Because what the Jets need is they need top 6 scoring. They need somebody to step in because Cole Perfetti can't score or hasn't been able to so far this year.
There are options here that everybody's not, I think, talking about. There's a team out there in the playoffs that would love. You don't think the Edmonton Oilers would love Nito Niederreiter in their bottom 6 come playoff time?
Maybe.
And that being said, he's got 15 points in 39 games.
But you make those moves now. You still need guys.
If you get a guy with term, yeah.
So you're going to get guys coming back. Oilers are going to be trading guys you can fit right into your roster right now that are not going to be a total fallback.
How old is Andrew Mangiapane? He's younger than Nito.
Yeah, I think he's 29.
And Nino's not. I believe in Nino. I really like Nino. I think he's a good player. He's having a horrific season. He handled the healthy scratch on the weekend extremely well, all that stuff. But if it's not working, I mean,
Well, the problem is, Jim, there's a lot of those guys.
Well, there's a lot of those guys, but there are. I'm saying that if you take Nino and throw in a second-round pick,
they can't trade any more second-round picks. That's the problem. They don't have any.
I think they can because I think there's prospects coming in the Moose.
When are they coming?
They're not ready.
Where are they?
Well, when you need them.
Well, if you trade
a roster player for a roster player, then the projection for the Moose players doesn't change. If you go get a Tyler Bertuzzi out of Chicago right now, and you're going to use him next year as well,
there's no way Chicago's getting rid of Bertuzzi. They're 2-3 points out of a playoff spot.
Well, fair enough, but in a month from now, or
maybe.
Like, I'm just saying, there's options.
But I'm saying right now, at this moment, are there any options? Is there a trade right now available for this team? I don't think there is. Call the Boston Pizza.
I think a lot
Jets
of teams will take a chance on Cole Perfetti.
Open 24/7, 204-780-6800. Boston Pizza, where it's pasta Tuesday every day this January from only $11.99. Hungry for saucy savings, hungry for BP. The number one caller rewarded a $50 gift card to Boston Pizza on Friday.
Dare I say this? If you look at him on the fourth line and his faceoff percentage, there's a lot of playoffs teams that would take a shot at Jonathan Toews.
We'll be right back. Hey, I'll play that clip that I think was the most important piece of the entire press conference. We'll get to that after 12:30.
With Cameron Poitras and Jim Toth on 680 CJOB.
Well, I think, again, those are conversations that are ongoing all the time. I think that, again, not ruling out any of those, options, as we move forward here. We'll certainly take a good look at that.
That answer was 13 seconds, and it was by far his shortest answer of the entire press conference when the Free Press's Mike McIntyre asked him about the waiver situation and risk, and is it worth the risk to put underperforming players in the minors? I don't know. Take from that what you will. We'll be right back. My most important comment from the entire press conference when we return. 204-780-6868. This hour is brought to you by Wash Method Car Wash, 690 St. Anne's Road, and at washmethod.com, which is coming at you live from the Boston Pizza Studio. Boston Pizza, saucy savings on pasta every day in January from only $11.99. I want to squeeze some, we'll do a little bit of angry text messages. We also have text messages from Monday that I promised that we would get to. The leftovers. So I'll get a couple of those on. That's all we have time for. It's a couple. But I'll get some angry texts on from people that were not happy with Cheveldayoff in his press conference. Winnipeg loyalty, this texter says, GM for life, spinning their wheels in the mud, going nowhere for 15 years. He should have been fired when he selected Perfetti and bypassed Winnipeg born and raised Seth Jarvis. He will not draft local players. He will not draft WHL players. He should be fired immediately, but he'll be here for another 15 years, spinning his wheels in the mud, going nowhere. John says he doesn't have answers. Time to find somebody else and let them try. If every candidate says I have no answers either, then keep Chevy. If someone says I have some ideas, then give them a try. Jim, you have no answers. Not your job to have answers. Your job is to broadcast opinions, to generate conversation. Chevy's job is to have answers. If he has none, it's time for him to go. Bob says this is on Chipman. He is too hands-on, too loyal to Chevy, and Chevy knows his job will always be there.
Look, this is the wrong time to do this, but if you're out there and you think Kevin Cheveldayoff doesn't care, you're wrong. And if you're out there and you think that Kevin Cheveldayoff isn't thinking of some things and talking about some things and looking at doing some things, you're wrong. It's no different than, and we joke about this, that he's at the cabin on free agency day and he's just fishing and not picking up the phone. Yeah. You don't have to like him. You don't have to like the direction of the team. You don't have to, but when we get into this part of it, and I get it, and I'm not trying to disrespect any fan. You're upset, you're angry, and I totally understand that. But when he doesn't give you answers, it doesn't mean he's not working on something.
I will say, let me say this too,
and it might not work again because a lot of what he did in the summer didn't work.
That's right. And so,
but he's not sitting there going, I don't have answers and we'll just ride this out.
As much as, I'm talking to you, a fan of this team, and how much it hurts and how much it sucks, and how painful it is that this team is where it is right now, coming into the season with all those expectations. I promise you, and I'm just being honest, that Cheveldayoff might not be the guy to fix this team. And I will 100% be on board for that. He might not be the guy that takes this team to the promised land and has them finally lift a Stanley Cup. Cheveldayoff may very well not be the general manager of that team. But I promise you this hurts him more than it hurts you. without a doubt. This hurts him in an immeasurable amount.
I mean, for those people who want him fired and dislike him for the past 5 or 6 years, I'm not disrespecting you. But no matter what he said today, you're going to dislike it.
Yeah.
No matter what he does. But again, there's a guy, Billy, I think his name, has reached out for me for over 2 weeks now. That
we got to get to some clips here.
Okay, yeah, he's warned.
Just finish your thought.
They don't like this and they don't like that and stuff like that. I'm not defending him. I'm just. Maybe it is time for a change, bigger picture.
It might be.
This didn't work out.
100% it might be.
Nobody in the summer didn't think this team was a playoff team. And nobody in the summer, I promise you, even if you're listening, you're going to convince me that you thought they'd be dead last. And if you think the management team and the owner and the coach, Scott Arniel, doesn't sit there and go, what the, just like all of us, it's not true. Now, you might be right. He's not the guy maybe and blah, blah, blah. But they're trying something. And it might not work because a lot of the offseason moves like Nyquist and to an extent Jonathan Toews. I think Jonathan Toews fine on the fourth line. But to make him the second line center did not work.
That was a bad move.
The idea that Cole Perfetti had found himself and was going to score 60-some goals. I don't know anybody that thought Niederreiter and Nemestikov would have these seasons.
I know, Jim. This texter says, "Who cares if he cares? Results, fire Chevy." So I don't know. This to me.
He mentioned that too, right? It's
so to me, this is the most important clip from the whole entire conversation. It comes from Dave Minuk from Illegal Curve, and he was asked the question, "Why have you been hesitant to call up players from the AHL?"
The big thing about again is you can call players up, you can put players in lineups. I think what everyone needs to kind of understand is if you take a look at our roster right now, and there's a lot of veteran players on this team. There's older veterans, but there's also younger veterans now. And over the course of their careers, a lot of these guys have had tremendous success. And over the course of this season, a lot of those guys have had some real frustration. And that's difficult. As a player in the National Hockey League, the line to success is not straight, but the forgiveness or the ability to last a long time and have a consistent career, that is difficult. And there's, again, if you put a player in the wrong situation, and they can't achieve the success that they need to keep advancing their career, that's a very dangerous thing. And it's easy just to say, put a guy in the lineup, play him. But if you're supposed to be a top 6 player or you're supposed to play to your identity as a player, and you don't, that's a very difficult thing, as an athlete and as an individual to try to push forward. So that's the adversity that I guess I talk about. There's adversity with the team, there's adversity, but there's individual adversity that if you're not achieving what you think you can or feel you can, the NHL is not a very forgiving league for situations like that.
That is the most important piece.
And ask Cole Perfetti about that.
Yeah.
Ask Cole Perfetti how forgiving the NHL is. If you're not ready, and maybe some people can counter, and I think it's a fair point, was Cole Perfetti ready? So, I mean, when you get 50 points last year and you do what he did in the playoffs, I kind of bank on the fact that, okay, it took 3 or 4 years. He was injured the first 2 for 40 and 50 games. It's finally arrived, right? And then look at this year. Like, it's a dangerous situation. To call up a Brad Lambert, put him in the top 6, and have him make mistakes. Elias Salamonson came in, and I think here's the one guy I think that they should bring up. I think Elias Salamonson could come in and play well enough to help this team, but also wear some warts. But when he came in, Cam, his first 2 games, there was 2 turnovers. One ended up in the back of the net.
And there was other mistakes.
Now, depending on Salamonson's mindset, that could destroy you. And that's the part of development we never talk about. Put him in the league, let him blah, 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 and then what happens? And so I understand that. But there are some people that I think I would rather the Lamberts and the Barlows in the idea of developing, go through a season with the Moose and put up 20 goals, put up 25 goals like he did 2 years ago. but he's asked for a trade because he thinks he's NHL ready. And there's not one person I've talked to that have seen him play in the Moose. Now, they do say he could play in this lineup, but he's got warts and he's not complete and he's not blah, blah, blah. But I think the best thing for his development is to be in the Moose and score 20 goals again.
Let's also talk about development here. Here was Cheveldayoff asked about where this team is in draft and development, with Perfetti and Sandberg being the only recently drafted players on the roster as of today.
Well, again, I do think we do have some players that are, ready to kick the door down, so to speak. If you look at, a player like Solomonson, I think he's closer, obviously than you think. But for his shoulder injury last year, he might have had, even a bigger opportunity. You look at the development of a Josh Morrissey and how that period of time, in the American Hockey League, helped him. But even still, when he got into the National Hockey League, it took a little while for him to become Josh Morrissey. But I think, you look at two prospects that we have playing in the World Juniors right now in Boumediene and Frey, and both of them are playing, big roles, in their team's quest for the gold medal. But certainly it is a concerning thing when you've traded a bunch of draft picks, or some of the draft picks that you've made, haven't gotten to that level. That's something that, again, as an organization, they are your lifeblood, and maybe not having some guys totally ready, forced us to make some decisions in the summer that, that we did. And again, some of those things work, some of those, don't, some of them are still a work in progress. But again, you're as a manager, I think you guys someone want to ask the question. You got to have a panoramic type of vision as well. And I do think we were hyper focused these last bunch of years here on the now, and again, rightfully so, because that the group of guys played their way into that, and the group of guys that are playing right now will help us forge our path or make our decisions accordingly, at the right time. But that's why, again, it's the adversity that, whether you're in the American Hockey League and or whether in the National Hockey League, it's how you handle it. And when you get your opportunity, you better be ready.
So along those lines, I think he's admitting some fault there. I think he's admitting that some of the prospects they've drafted, they had high hopes for and haven't panned out quite yet.
And it forced them into adding some players in the summer that perhaps they didn't want to have to add.
So your clip at the beginning of this segment was that stood out. That's the one that stood out to me. That sounds to me like in the summer, they made a pitch to Ehlers. He went to Carolina. They tried for Brock Besser. He stayed in Vancouver. Then they probably had a time where they're like, can Lambert, Chibrikov, can these guys play? And they were probably like, with the Moose executive and coaching staff probably said, it depends on their summer and what they look like at camp, but I doubt it. So then you go out and grab the 1 year Tanner Pearsons, the Cole Koepkes, the Gustav Nyquist. Now, Nyquist, I think, was a result of the Ehlers leaving.
Yeah.
But the other ones is you're like, in case these, and I'll say this, I believe this. I think if Chibrikov and Brad Lambert came in and never looked back, I think Pearson would be on waivers by now. And I think that, Cole Koepke I've liked. I don't think they would waive him. Mm-hmm. He would be the depth guy, but they would love him to go down to the Moose and come back up. But that stood out to me. That they were hoping that the Brad Lamberts of the world and maybe the David Gustafsons could take some roles on this team. And then when they brought in the veterans and they had their training camp, it didn't happen, right? So, but of the guys we're talking about, Cam, I think David Gustafson's having a good year. But a good year coming up, I don't know if he's a top 6 guy. Like, he's really good at that fourth line, but they have enough fourth liners.
That's the problem.
So that to me told me that they were banking on some of the people some of the players that the people are screaming about seeing in the lineup right now were ready, and they just aren't.
Yeah, which is a fault of the organization. Like, and a lot of this has to do with, and I'm not looking to cut the organization any slack. They've missed on a lot of development here over the last number of years. But Chaz Lucius, and he mentioned him earlier on, and
retired. And you don't see that coming, right?
And that was a guy who, like, listen, if he could have stayed healthy, he was going to be a goal scorer in the National Hockey League. Everything pointed towards.
When we're talking about development, Connor Bedard comes in, surefire, right? Number one, Rookie of the Year, Calder Trophy, everything. Then look at his season last year.
He'll step back, yeah.
And then he goes to work, right? Like it's not unheard of that it takes a while with some of these. But I appreciate the fact that he admits that they're not coming along and the organization has to wear that and stuff. That's the one thing I keep hearing from some fans screaming about of where's the development. A guy was tweeting me today, where's the development on these guys from 2 years ago? I think he's admitting a little fault there that like we got to develop these guys better. But the last 3 years, they don't care. Like they're in win now. And when you have a roster like they had last year and the year before, you augment it. You don't develop.
Yeah, and they don't have the...
Chicago can develop with Bedard in his second year because they're not going anywhere.
Mr. Chance, get your thoughts on the show today. Call the Boston Pizza Jets at Noon hotline, open 24/7, 204-780-6800. Boston Pizza, where it's Pasta Tuesday every day this January from only $11.99. Hungry for saucy savings, hungry for BP. Let's take a break. Let's come back on the other side. Well, there was another question asked of Kevin Cheveldayoff. Have the older vets affected this team's ability to play defensive hockey? He was asked that question. I'll give you Chevy's answer when we return.
On 680 CJOB.
I want to play one more clip, and it's 2 minutes long, but I want to make sure we have time for that. So I just want to get our final thoughts on the show here, and then we'll squeeze in a couple more text messages right at the end for some Monday reheat stuff that we missed on Friday that I promised I'd get in. We'll squeeze it onto the show. But I just wanted to have this, Jim, and then you give your final thoughts, and then we'll have that clip that I teed up going into the last break here. And I'm just going to be honest, this team, and some people saying you don't talk about last year, well, I'm going to, because it's important for the context of what we're talking about. There's a President's Trophy winning team that played a real tight series with Dallas in the second round, a team that had a lot of playoff experience. Dallas. There was a real tight series, losing in overtime in Game 6. Huge emotional game, and missed opportunities just stacked up for the Jets. They ended up losing. I personally, if I was the general manager of this team, would not have done anything different than Kevin Cheveldayoff this summer. Hindsight is 20/20. But the thing is, Jim, is I'm not an NHL general manager. And it's his job to see those things. And so far this season, he's failed at that. And that's just the God's honest truth. Kevin Cheveldayoff so far this season has, I don't want to say he's failed at his job, but he has certainly not lived up to expectations.
Well, what he tried didn't work.
Yeah.
So he's got to wear that.
Yeah.
And it didn't work drastically. And I think it's even a surprise to him and the rest of the management team there. I'll just wrap up by saying this. And again, we're going free for all Friday. We got a game tomorrow. We'll get into all this. But so I wouldn't have done the same either. Like I look at the middle six of this team in training camp and I'm like, I wouldn't have moved any of those guys. I would have tried to add to it. But the depth has extremely let this team down, and the depth has been their strength for the last 2 years. So I don't blame them for banking on that. That being said, Cam, we can debate who's this and that for a year. It's on him. This is his team. And I'm not a homer. I'm not taking anything away from him and stuff like this. But now is his time where he's got to go to work. He's got to fix this roster. It's his job to fix it.
Here was the question from Sean Reynolds. Have the older vets affected the team's ability to play defensive hockey?
Well, I think defensive brand of hockey, like addressing that in particular, I think playing defensive hockey is a mindset. It's one of those things where again it's structural. It's pure hard work and doggedness. That from a defensive standpoint, I don't think the moves affected it negatively in other ways. Certainly some of the players that we brought in that play a certain style. Obviously, again, you're bringing those players in for that period of time and obviously moving forward. But when you're sitting at the trade deadline in the situation that we were in last year, you're trying to give that group every opportunity to try and succeed, because I think again, as it shows here, winning in this league is tough, and when you have that opportunity to try to move forward with or try to push forward a group, then you do the things that are available for you to do. That being said, you're sitting here today with lots of capital that was expelled over those course of those years, and that's why it's easy to say go all in, make those trades at the deadline, spend all that capital. When you're sitting there on June whatever, not making the pick, you feel it. When you're sitting in situations where you maybe like to jump in on another trade situation and you don't, those are things that are difficult as a manager to weigh, and again, there's an opportunity cost with every decision that you make in the National Hockey League, and some of them obviously help push you in the right direction. Some of them maybe don't pan out as you do, but you have to learn from those and you move on.
Cheveldayoff, in a nutshell there, not happy with the additions that he brought in. They just have not been able to deliver. We did not get to the Monday reheat. We'll have to do a Tuesday reheat. And we probably got more text messages today than we ever have before. So we'll get to those tomorrow. But it's a game day. But we're gonna find time throughout the rest of the week. Jim Toth will take you all the way till 2 o'clock. Thanks very much to Jeffrey Fortier for producing the show. That's it for me. Back same time tomorrow. See ya.